As we begin this afternoon, I just want to say a deep thank you for being remembered in prayer all week. That really has meant a lot to me. I never discount the power because sometimes, as we deal with retreats or anything else important in our lives, we don't know what the Spirit has in mind to say, what's going to come out of our mouths. So I really appreciate that because that's been an abiding presence all week. So thank you. Today we're going to talk about hospitality and stability. Now, aren't they strange that I put the two together? But I think they fit together. So we're going to start out with a quotation from Daniel Holman in a book called Radical Hospitality, where he says, hospitality is a lively, courageous, and convivial way of living that challenges our compulsions either to turn away or to turn inward and disconnect ourselves from others. I'm going to read it one more time because that statement really touched me. Hospitality is a lively, courageous, and convivial way of living that challenges our compulsion either to turn away or to turn inward and disconnect ourselves from others. So think about it. The other day we talked about the shadows to living something. Well, this is part of it too. When we don't have that open spirit to be hospitable, there's something else going on in the background. And that's what needs to be addressed more than the presence. And I appreciated your reading today from on the whole sense of hospitality, basically, what the call of the community is, and meeting Christ at the door, and all the ways in which your practices have prayed with guests as they arrived, seeing Christ in them, and serving the needs of those who come. In this world that is so disconnected and so individualized, that is a huge gift. And I just encourage you not to take that gift lightly, to be hospitable. I have felt it all week, and hopefully the few words that I have to reflect on what hospitality is will be touching for you as well. Hospitality is all about warmth, generosity, and making others feel valued. One of the key things I learned early on in doing spiritual direction was eye-to-eye contact. If you're an introvert, you may tend to want to go like this. But it's that eye to eye, seeing the other and the other seeing you is really an important part of hospitality. So the 5 points that I want to use to define hospitality are a welcoming atmosphere. Hospitality thrives on creating an inviting environment where people feel comfortable and appreciated, not because of what they can bring to you, but by the very fact that they are. You may be the first person that has really paid attention to them in that day. You may be the first one who has said to someone, welcome. I just got off a conference call with Land Justice Futures, where we're talking about community organizing. And do you know what the first principle of good organizing is? One-on-one contact, one-on-one listening to the stories of another, one-on-one. And when we're involved in bigger organizing kinds of things, that seems trivial, but it is the basis of all good communication and connection. It's the basis. to have that welcoming atmosphere. The second principle is attentiveness. It's about anticipating needs and providing thoughtful service, making guests feel truly cared for. I have been overwhelmed with hospitality this week, from the basket of treats that's in my room to things set outside my door to little comments that I've heard here and there. Those are all part of that attentiveness. As you live more deeply into your Benedictine call to hospitality, I invite you to have that same attentiveness to each other, because that's the practice field for when you welcome guests. If you're that way with each other, it becomes easy to welcome new people in. If you don't know how to be hospitable to each other, it's a sham to welcome others into your home with warmth. Does that ring true? Yeah. Yeah. We say that all the time. In my community, community is our foremost apostolate. It's simply like what yours is, to be hospitable, is to be that welcoming, making one wherever we are. That's an Augustinian call, and that's where I come from with that. But it's not far from the hospitality that you live. The third principle is kindness and respect. Genuine hospitality stems from treating everyone with kindness, dignity, and understanding. When you hear that, I encourage you to think about the person that you have the hardest time being hospitable to. Can you still be respectful and kind? Sometimes it's our tiny little differences that separate us from each other. I just encourage you to think about the grace of hospitality then in those situations. The fourth principle is personalized experience. Great hospitality considers individual preferences, ensuring interactions feel meaningful rather than generic. By that I mean, you can say good morning to everybody, but if it doesn't have any warmth or any deeper meaning, it's just a generic good morning. But if you really truly wish another good morning, it sits differently. So think about that. Are your welcomes generic or are they individualized? And part of that, again, is looking the other in the eye and being that welcoming presence. And the last of the five that I'm going to point out is a commitment to service. Commitment to service, which is the basis of what Benedict talked about. Whether in homes, hotels, restaurants, hospitality is rooted in a dedication to exceeding expectations and fostering positive connections. I'm going to add to that list communities, your house, your home, your monastery. It's a commitment to the best service you can provide. Do you know how blessed you are with the health, with the probably health too? I'm not aware of it as much, but the food service that's going on here. Are you aware of how blessed that is? These people come in to serve your needs. And the food has been incredibly good all week. It's just a commitment to service that these people bring. And obviously, they've heard from you how much it's appreciated. That keeps them growing and what that needs to be of service to. So it's a mutual kind of thing. So it's the blessing. So how does hospitality really line up with our religious values. Those were all the general things about hospitality. The first one is a sacred welcome. A sacred welcome. Many religions, not just Catholics, not just Benedictines, emphasize welcoming strangers as a moral duty, reflecting divine love and compassion. St. Benedict instructs all guests who arrive should be received as Christ. This reflects the biblical teaching. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me here. Second one of this list of religious ways, serving others. Hospitality is seen as an act of service, mirroring the humility and kindness taught in Scripture. It mirrors the humility and kindness from Scripture. Hospitality in Benedictine tradition is not just about providing food and shelter, but about offering genuine care and prayerful service. You in your life are encouraged to meet guests with humility and love. During this conference call that I was just on, we talked about what many community organizers do by going door to door as they talk with people, usually around a political issue, but it doesn't have to be. It's the one-on-one getting to know what the other cares for and not just sharing my spiel about what it is that I care about. But it's saying, what are you concerned about? What are your ideas? What would you like to say? I believe your community meetings are based on that kind of, let's listen to one another. Let's care for each other, correct? That's hospitality here in the house again. The third one is generosity and sharing and charity, Giving freely, whether food, shelter, or kindness, is a spiritual practice in many faith traditions. Benedict emphasizes special care for the poor, pilgrim, recognizing Christ's presence in them. This aligns with the biblical call to show hospitality to one another without grumbling. That's from 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 9. Think about the hospitality and connection you have with Hill Murray, with the people who live in the apartment building here, and the children who are all of those places, the hospitality you offer to your staff. I've met a number of them out walking, and there's such a congenial, caring presence. They love working here with you because you offer them good care and concern. The fourth one is community and fellowship. Gathering together, sharing meals, supporting one another fosters unity and deepens spiritual connections. Benedictine hospitality extends far beyond your monastery. And you know that the Spirituality Center has done that so well for so many years. It's well known in this area for providing that safe place of deep spiritual growth. And I don't know if you do this or not. Guests are invited to join in your daily prayers and meals. Yeah. Okay. Virginia shook her head right away. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, good. The fifth one is unconditional love and respect. Showing hospitality without expectation, regardless of background or beliefs, embodies the essence of faith-based care. In your Benedictine context, hospitality isn't a stand-alone virtue. It is intertwined with justice, dignity, and stewardship. In Hebrews 13, verse 2, and Matthew 25:35 calls us to welcome strangers as if they were divine visitors. Benedictine's instruction about receiving all guests as Christ feels less like a lofty aspiration and more like a lived mandate of communal life. Yeah. In some ways, we really don't have a choice but to be hospitable. Benedict's wisdom on hospitality is both radical and deeply human. Again, we have that quotation from chapter 53, letting all guests who arrive be received in Christ as Christ. This isn't just poetic. It's a call to see the divine in every person. As I shared with you the other day, our practice is to say, praised be Jesus Christ. And for you to say that to me now and forever. Amen. It's that kind of acknowledgement. I wish we still did that practice. My sisters, if I would do that to them today, they'd say, what happened to you?
Yeah.
But it is exactly that. We say, oh, I'm so happy to see you, kind of thing. What if we saw Christ there? Think about that. Hospitality for Benedict isn't about entertaining or impressing. It's about presence, welcoming with humility, prayer, and genuine kindness. I believe you practiced this too in the earlier days, is to greet guests with a bow. Yeah? Do you do that? What would that symbolize? Deep respect, right? Yeah. Echoing Christ's own action of service. This posture of reverence wasn't reserved for the powerful or familiar, but extended to all. What's striking about hospitality within your context, hospitality is meant to transform both the giver and the receiver of the hospitality. We are changed by those we allow into our lives, into our space. It's not just about offering food, it's about opening the heart, listening with the ear of our heart to the other. As one Benedictine sister put it, Benedict's teachings on hospitality are deeply rooted in Christian values and emphasize welcoming others as if they were Christ himself. This thread of hospitality is really all the way through the scriptures. And I'll give you a number of them for your further reflection. Hebrews 13, verse 2. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. Love that one. Matthew 25, verse 35. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me here. Romans 12:13. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. And Peter, 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 9. Be hospitable to one another without complaining. A gentle reminder that true welcome is offered with joy, not obligation. And lastly, Luke 14, verse 13 to 14. Jesus urges us to invite the poor, crippled, the lame, the blind, promising blessing in return, not from. And tomorrow I'm going to be talking about peace and justice, the kind of the outward expression of your charism. But if we look at hospitality, it's really what shapes modern justice work. It's the dignity becomes not just a concept, but a posture when we respect everyone with dignity. Stewardship, not just offering resources, but making sure those resources honor the needs and voices of the people receiving them. Hospitality in this life becomes a profound act of peacemaking, breaks down walls, diffuses fear, and opens space for relationship. I alluded the other day to an experience I had in Mankato of being a welcoming presence to the Dakota people who were coming to visit. As I started to say, what the sisters had hoped for this visit and this land, I turned to the elder sitting next to me and he said, "What do you know about the doctrine of discovery? Have you heard of it?" And I said, "What would you like us to know about the doctrine of discovery?" Rather than telling me, me, I put it back in his plate, and he was more than willing to talk about what happened to their people as they were shunted out of their homes in Minnesota to Dakotas and to Nebraska and lost their place of belonging. Those are the ways in which we can engage others, is to say, what is it you want to tell us? And move to my next document here. Just a second. On stability. If we really live hospitality, it gives us that sense of deep stability as well. It's a distinct vow in your world. When Linda first said that to me, I went, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could live in one house. I don't know if I could stay, because as an apostolic religious woman, our call is to be out and about doing this and bringing community wherever we are. But as I studied it more, I came to understand stability is what we hope every one of our interactions would be. It might not be living in the same four walls, but it's that stability of values, that stability of outreach, the stability of caring for our homes. It's all of that is tied together. Key aspects of stability, which you already know. It's a commitment to one community. And what does that allow you to do? It allows you to have a greater and deeper sense of your spiritual lives. It's there. It's there. Because you don't have to start over in every new community you move into. You've got a basic understanding of each other. It helps you to face challenges with perseverance. As you see sisters moving through one phase of life to another, it's a call to really be there with them, to be that steady rock of community support. And it doesn't have to be just for the elderly. Sometimes as people go through situations in their life, they need a solid rock to stand on. So what does that look like for you? It's about hospitality and service. By remaining in one place, you create a welcoming environment for guests, offering spiritual refuge. You don't know the story of those that often come unless they've come many times because of what they've discovered here. But it's really about listening to what's not being said in their story and opening them to greater experiences of the Christ that they've come to experience or want to experience. I'm going to go back again to this conference I just got off of. One of our sisters has been doing community action work for 40 years. And she was asked as a guest to be there to talk about what that means. And she shared a very simple story. She walked in on a Jubilee celebration of sisters who were celebrating 60 years of religious life. One of the sisters was 3 years older than the rest in the group. And they asked, what did you do those 3 years that those of us who entered right out of high school didn't do? And honest to goodness, this story had never been told with her own classmates. What did she do? She was raised as a Mennonite. She became Catholic against her parents' wishes. She was doing some outreach work, but had not gone to college yet. For their companions, 60 years to hear that story for the first time is stunning. Do you know each other's stories? Do you know them deeply? Do you know what motivates and where it comes from, where your own story started in your own family? Do you know those stories? I'm hoping you can say, yes, we do. Yes. But there might be parts of that story you don't know. So as you come to this time in religious life, when everything seems to be more individualized and away from getting to know the real deep story, I encourage you to do more storytelling. Stability is a countercultural witness. In a world of constant change, your vow stands for rootedness and fidelity. I yearn for that. I've got the concepts of what SSND has taught me, the charism, what I've learned, but I don't know it in space because of how we've moved around the world, literally around. But the beauty of what you do is you invite people in to experience it because you hovered around each other for years, creating this hospitable place. I envy that. On the other hand, the richness I've experienced by seeing SSND in all parts of the world has been a gift to me because our sisters in Africa live our vows and our charism very differently than those in Germany, those in Austria, those in Czechoslovakia. Those are places I was able to visit. So, it's all about being at home and creating stability for each other. What are the key aspects? These: commitment to one community, spiritual growth through stability, facing challenges with perseverance, hospitality connected to service, and countercultural witness. So when we look at this, it also has a lot to say about conversatio morum, about that deep transformation that you have in a special way. We keep talking about, Laudato Si really talks about that whole move toward transformation that all of us need to be about. You've got it written in for you. You are committed to continuous transformation, deepening your faith while remaining in one place. Embracing change within stability. While Benedictines remain in their monastery, you adapt to new challenges. Just the little bit that Jackie shared with me last night was she wanted to come home from school during this time between classes. It's a wonderful expression of what hospitality means, what home means. Take that for what it's worth, Jackie. Finding God in the ordinary. Stability teaches that holiness is found in daily life rather than seeking fulfillment elsewhere. It's about cultivating inner stillness and peace, trusting that God works through perseverance. This is another difference between my community's expression and yours. Pauses in prayer are significant for me because we do not do that. We have one word after another and we keep racing through them. But to pause, to deliberately say words, to pause after each psalm or each canticle, after the reading. And even at the end of prayer, there's a pause before the gong is saying prayer is finished. Do you know the gift of that? That's part of what helps you to live within this stable community of your lives too. One of the things that came to mind too as I was preparing this is how does avoiding comfort lead to stagnation? When you live in the same place, doing the same thing, praying the same hours every day, how do you keep from becoming stagnant or old or set? You can answer that better than I can. It's a temptation. Sometimes all of the rhythms of life lead to a comfortability. You know what to expect. So it's easy. The other part is it becomes so easy that you don't keep changing through it. That's the stagnation part I'm referring to right now. How do you do that? And you know well, the vow of stability faces significant challenges, including an aging community and a community that no longer accepts new members. Those are two sides of the same spectrum. How do you deal with that? How do you reflect on that? What's the gift in knowing that these are the folks you're going to be with for the long haul? And not accepting new members takes away some of the challenge of teaching the ways of the community, but it's also not having the life energy of young people, which also keeps growing the community. How do you deal with that? It's something we've not honored yet in our story. Another piece of this, and I was happy to have had a chat with Sister Catherine yesterday, about financial sustainability. Because I asked her, I said, what's the plan? And she was able to share with me the future plans that are here for your sustained care and yet carrying on the legacy. They both are really important in living this vow of stability. It's that financial sustainability. Another one is diminished outreach. As sisters, you are not able to do as much with the spirituality center as you once did. But you freed others to do the leading now, right? Do I understand that correctly? Yeah. Right. So it's sharing the charism, it's growing the charism. But it also says we no longer have the energy or the health to do the work that we used to do in those fields. It's part of stability to acknowledge that. And it changes for all of us. And then the last one I'm going to name is emotional and spiritual struggles. Stability is meant to cultivate perseverance. But watching the monastery decline can be painful for its members, leading to questions about their future. There are a couple of you who are in your 60s here yet in this group. Some who are in their early 70s, some who are in their 80s, and some I know are in their 90s. You look at it differently no matter what your perspective is. So as you go forward tonight, I have a call in about 5 minutes with our leadership team, so I'm going to end it here and say, my stability is staying on time today. So thank you very much and blessings on this evening. Tomorrow we're back to our regular schedule. Okay. Thank you.